I had bought the peaches and peppers and dilly salad mix and berries and various other deliciousness that I was intending to buy, and returned them to the car, and then got a coffee at a local coffee shop, and made a point of sitting on a bench, on a bench that was empty outside of this coffee shop at one end of it, such that there was another end. And in this era, of course, you don't tend to get approached by strangers who ask if they can sit near you, because people are scared, and it's you just never know who or what the person that you might be sitting next to is or believes or might be carrying as a pathogen, right? So this woman, totally different person from the women I interacted with in a different spot several weeks ago, whom I talked about on air, but of similar age, probably a few years older than us, Brett, and with grown children, but young adult children. I don't know this all at first, of course. She approaches me. She's carrying a couple bags. She's got a nice poodle with her, and she asks if she can put the bags down on the bench first. And I said, of course. And then after a little while, she asks if she can sit down. She says she's agreed to meet someone from Craigslist that she's selling the contents of the bags to here, and we start talking, and well, actually, before she asked if she can sit down, I said, of course, but I'm not wearing a mask. That's going to have to be okay with you. She says, of course, it's outside. So I thought, good. I think what she said was, of course, we're outside after all. And we then start talking about how much more difficult this is going to get as the weather turns. And in the Pacific Northwest, the summers are perfect when the smoke doesn't make it impossible to breathe, and from the fires. But the middle fall through early spring are pretty dreary and cool, and they usually don't get bitterly cold, but very wet. And you're not going to be sitting outside, a coffee shop on most days in November. It would be too wet and cold for it. Although there are usually moments in every day when you could do that. And we started talking about how we're all going to need to be good to one another, and to not look at one another with distrust or anger, to not dehumanize one another. And she says that it will require creativity on all of our parts, and patience. And she says at some point in here that she's a Christian, and that she's a Christian enough, and a lot of people claim the mantle of Christianity, but that she's a Christian enough that she actually goes to Bible study every week, and that her children, now grown, actually did missions when they were in high school. And I tell her that I'm not a Christian, that my lineage is Christian, but that I am not, but that the teachings in the New Testament are ones that we might all do well to abide by. And I just wanted to share some of the things that she shared. One of the people in her family, I'm gonna leave this a little bit vague. I did ask her if I could talk about our conversation on air, and she didn't know of us, and she said yes. One of her relatives has an office in downtown Portland. There was a shooting outside of it last week. Sometimes he can't see outside of his windows because of the literal dumpster fires. So this is still happening. There is now cosplay on both sides, in which you have sort of staged extremists bringing themselves together to have fights that look staged. So
the gunfire outside the office was the confrontation between the Proud Boys and Antifa?
It was, and of course these occasional altercations that have happened between the Proud Boys and Antifa are the moments that the Proud Boys show up, whereas Antifa has been present much more consistently. I would say that there are people effectively LARPing on both sides, but that Antifa are the people with the persistent presence in Portland.
Well, if I can add one thing.
Yeah.
These look, for one thing, they are reported in a very distorted way. But if you look at what actually takes place, these are effectively rumbles. that somebody has announced that they're going to have a demonstration and someone else decides that they're going to protect the city from it. And what you have is these pre-announced rumbles. And the amazing thing is that despite the fact that these rumbles are violent up through a gun battle in this case, the police effectively are staying out of it and leaving Portland ungoverned in some ways. And it is an absolutely shocking abdication of responsibility on the part of our municipal authorities. But in any case.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's exactly right. And, we talked about the lack, she and I, this woman and I talked about the lack of leadership. And why aren't the police stepping in at this point? Well, in part because the police were roundly pilloried for so many months last year and continue to be by many people who write things like "all cops are bastards" and things like "kill a pig" on graffiti in downtown Portland and elsewhere. And many good cops are leaving, are retiring, and this woman has many police in her among her friends and family as well, and told of some stories of these good, compassionate, honest, honorable law enforcement officers, both men and women, who are being attacked for trying to do their jobs. Of course, at some point, at the point that you have basically rumbles that are announced in advance between two opposing sects, it's not the Crips and the Bloods, but it might as well be. The police are going to say, you know what, we're out. And where does that leave the business owners and the people with offices who are exactly in the places where the rumbles are taking place? Well, it's left our downtown a complete mess. It's a complete mess.
Well, and it's going to become a disaster as people discover that the police are not showing up. I don't think we know to what extent the decision not to show up is the police, and to what extent, certainly our mayor seems to proclaim himself clever for a strategy that involves staying out of these things, which of course is putting all the rest of the citizens of Portland in jeopardy. But I don't think we know why these decisions are being made. But what we can say is that, predictably enough, if you keep the police out of things, people will discover all of the things that they shouldn't be doing and weren't doing because police were enforcing the law. And so we're headed somewhere very, very dark.
This last week, there were literally people driving down the 405 the wrong way, one of the major highways through Portland.
Yep, it was filmed. Apparently there's a group of people that routinely commandeers streets and bridges in Portland and uses them for their own sporting purposes. It's obviously a completely unsustainable approach, and to the extent that Portland is still mostly hospitable, it's a legacy kind of stability from when the law was enforced. And at some level somebody's got to wake up.
Yeah, no, this is the leaders have long since lost the plot, it would appear. But the populace is not as quiescent and unaware as we would be told, right? That those of us who are seeing things and saying things are actually much more abundant than I think it would appear. And this is why I wanted to, and I have a few more things to say about this conversation that I had with this lovely woman who also, she's in Portland. She says, I'm a liberal. I've got, she reports to me that her best friend from high school lives in another town in Oregon that is very red, and that her friend and her disagree greatly over politics, but that she loves her dearly, and she always will, and that they can still talk with compassion and love in their hearts about their children and about their futures and about how to make meaning in the world and how to do good in the world. And the fact that they vote differently doesn't change that. And so I would return at some level to the reminder that you have been saying for years now that left, right, liberal, conservative, the vast majority of us share values. And to some degree, the biggest thing that we disagree on actually is what we think should be done, like how to achieve those values. And of course, right now, things are so fraught, but frankly, they have been for years now. And so who is served by keeping us at fever pitch? Who is served by keeping us at each other's throats? Not us. definitely not the people who are at each other's throats.